Reddit, what's the most ultimate petty revenge you've seen or been a part of? You youngins here might not believe it, but back in the early 90s, supermarket cashiers had to type every pricing by hand. I was at a Vons in San Diego, walking toward the only open check stand with a single bottle of soda in my hand. Suddenly this hobbity-tobbity lady with a cart stacked to the top flew out of one of the aisles like a freight train and cut me off. "I'm in a hurry," she said, then looked away like she was annoyed that I'd been born. I looked at the cashier. He rolled his eyes and got to work. 5 minutes later she's walking out the door and it's my turn. "You're good," says the cashier. I put your soda on her tag. Damn. That felt good. I used to deliver pizza for Domino's. It was my last shift and there was this house that was always rude. I called to ask what the house looked like and they said I gave you the address and hung up. Never tipped. etc. I got to their house and they gave me a check for 1 cent less than what the total was. I said I am going to need the extra penny. They grumbled off and took their time hoping I would give up, but I just sat there holding the pizza. They finally came back all pissed off and gave me the penny. Note that they had no intention of tipping. They gave me the penny and I chucked it out into the street and left. They saw me do it. It was satisfying. There was this kid, about 15, who cut in line in front of me at the supermarket. When he wasn't watching I broke his chocolate bar while still inside the wrapper. Later I saw him cycling by, opening his bar, and half of it fell out. He got pissy and I chuckled. Knew a crazy kid in elementary. Kid jumped across the table and tried to choke me out. I got suspended BC. I instigated it by saying he was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs when that the only thing that kid ever talked about and was wearing a Cocoa Puffs shirt that day. Senior year of high school, kid was in my design class. Needed to get a C or better on the final. Over the year I found out the kid was taking my work off my shared drive. High school it was dumb and each kid's folder was public, and copying it. For the final I purposely ducked up the drawing in my folder. But the kid didn't double check it. He turned it in and failed and had to go back and be a super senior. TLDR. Kid choked me. Waited 10 years made them fail high school. Edit. I turned in an A+ DWG. Left a sheet DWG in its place. When me and my ex-fiancée were having a bunch of arguments after we broke up, I got tired of her constantly texting me about nonsense, so I called insert phone carrier to have them cut off service to her phone that I paid for in the middle of an argument. A girl on my softball team bullied me and spread rumors about me to the team and coaches. We were competing for the same position. She was in my geometry class and tried to buddy up to me because I was good at geometry. And she wasn't. So for a while I let her copy my homework. Then one day I gave her all the wrong answers and turned in the right answers for myself. My neighbor's dog shits in our yard all of the time. It wouldn't be a big deal. Except he never cleans up after her. I finally had enough. So I decided to go with a classic. I put a flaming bag of his dog's shit on his porch, rang the bell, and hid in the bushes. When he answered the door, I finally got my revenge by having an affair with his wife for the last 3.5 years. My sister said some pretty mean things to me in front of my friends when I was younger. So I put a slice of bologna in her Walkman CD player. I got the idea from Corey in the show That's So Raven. Early in a game of Civ V, Alexander stole Petra from me at the last second. So I built a special city in the frozen wastes. Blocked it in with my own cities. Gifted it to him. Then burned the rest of his empire to the ground. It took about 5 hours. I like to think he learned his lesson. But that forward settling duck still looks as smug as ever. I once had a 1,000-year war with France due to them settling on a road between two of my cities. The road was right up against some mountains and had water on the other sides, but that duck settled there anyway. He refused any offer I made for the city, and once the war started, every peace treaty involved him taking one of my cities and all my resources. Nuking him twice changed his mind in the end. Boss paged me on my wedding night. Yeah. Bad on me for leaving the pager on, but in my defense it automatically turned on after charging and I wanted to have a full battery before setting off on my honeymoon trip. He did it as a joke. But it came at an inappropriate moment. We had a page only if something's on fire policy. So I had to call in even though I had just gotten married and was about to go on 2 weeks vacation. When he answered, he laughed so hard I just had to do something about it. So when I got back I programmed the mail servers to call out on their phone lines and hit his pager with dial back numbers for phone 6 services. At 4 AM. Every day. His wife got this pager before he did one time and saw a text message something like, "I loved how you described how you would FK me. Jerry. Call back when your wife's gone for the day." Wife was not amused. She thought he'd been calling phone 6 operators and tore him a new one. He knew it was me. But he was too stubborn to ask me to call it off. So it kept up for weeks until he finally figured out where the script was running from and used it to page me instead. We had a back and forth pager war for a while. But then it all ducked up when an actual data center emergency happened and one of us ignored the page thinking it was the other pranking him. That ended the fun. I still periodically look up my ex's post history and downvote all of his recent comments. I feel like this is one of the only ones that is truly petty. My wife used to keep these little Godiva chocolates that she likes in her desk at work. But started noticing some of them missing and figured it must be someone from the overnight cleaning staff taking them. Fed up with losing her not inexpensive treats, she decided to get revenge on the choco thief in question by replacing the good chocolate with little squares of chocolate laxatives that look just like real candies. The next morning she saw several of the laxatives gone. And then from that day forward, she was never missing another one of her good chocolates ever again. I used to work shifts many years ago, including regular night shifts. My boss was an unpleasant person to say the least. He would leave his keys on top of his locker. One night I took a small file to work and filed down 1 or 2 teeth of his front door key. The next day he was telling everyone of how he got home and his door lock was broken and he had to get a locksmith out, which cost a fortune, and he didn't get much sleep. Happened again a couple of months later. Then his car key got some treatment. I stopped after that as I heard him mention it was getting suspicious that all these locks stopped working. But, unknown to me, other colleagues also disliked him. One night his locker disappeared entirely. Rumor has it that it's part of the foundations of an office block in London now. When I was in 7th grade, the startup my dad was a part of was failing miserably in no small part due to a crazy CEO. While at his house, my dad observed the CEO's toddler daughter picking up a piece of dog sheet and licking it. He picked her up and told her to give her dad a kiss. A horrible former co-worker always claimed she worked way more hours than she actually did. And when she was at work she just browsed Facebook all day. The doctor owner was very hands-off and just let her do whatever she wanted, despite me going to him with proof. So I decided to take revenge. She was not computer savvy at all. So I removed Internet Explorer from her desktop and installed an identical icon that, when clicked, would instantly restart the computer. It was so satisfying when she would forget and click it, losing anything that she was working on. She would always grumble and complain about the virus on her computer. I started a new job about 3 weeks later. And when I left it was still giving her problems. My mom and dad. This happened when I was in my late 20s. My mom and I were in the car. My dad called and they started bickering with each other. My mom got irritated and hung up on him. He called her right back. And when she answered he hung up on her. Didn't even say a word, just waited for her to pick and hung up. It was so petty and hilarious to see my parents acting like children. I couldn't stop laughing. They've been married over 35 years. I still get tickled when I think about that. During my freshman year of high school I was in a biology class that was made up of mainly juniors. This one guy, who sat next to me, would always be a jerk to me during class. I always did well on the tests so he would always look over and copy the answers from my Scantron. I'm pretty sure he didn't realize that I knew he was cheating off of me. Well, one day I got fed up with this guy messing with me and cheating off of me. So the next test comes around and sure enough he starts copying my answers. I finish the test and so does he. He gets up and turns his test in and comes back to his seat. I looked him in the eyes and proceeded to erase my entire scantron. I then retook the test, this time marking the correct answers. The look of panic in his eyes was so satisfying. He ended up making a 2% on that test and never cheated off me again. In grade school, I kept a bag of chips in the same pocket every day of my backpack. This kid I knew would punch that pocket any chance he could for 5 days in a row. One day I replaced the chips with a bag of sewing pins. He never did it again. Sweet justice. I worked at a 50k plus tech company. I worked with a PM, Maggie, who misread my email and got her dates messed up. She scheduled a meeting for Thursday instead of Friday. When I told her she scheduled on the wrong day, she got mad at me and emailed all my managers up to my vice president, 4 levels of management, to say how much of a troublemaker I was. It was her own fault for not being able to read. 2 years later, I have to work with her again. And I pretend like I'm all happy and friends with her. 2 years after that, I quit and move on to a better company. I get an email saying that Maggie is applying to my new company and said I could provide a positive reference for her. I email the recruiter and blast all my 6 years of shit on her and block her from getting hired. Take that, Maggie. You ducker. I never forget. I saw an ad for a work from home type job. It didn't sound scammy and sounded sort of legit. So I asked for more info from the website. Enter your email thing. It was crap. And was sending me spam several times a day. For whatever reason blocking it didn't work. I got annoyed one day and answered back. Stop spamming me. The guy actually answered. He actually monitors that address. He told me to unsubscribe, which did nothing. After about another week of it, I came up with an idea. I took his email address he answered from and added it to his own list. Then signed it up for any other spam I could find. A few days later it stopped spamming me. When I was a kid, I attempted to call my aunt. For whatever reason I accidentally dialed a 6 instead of a 3 and this man cursed me out for being a telemarketer. I was so stunned I didn't even hang up initially. My petty revenge was giving the number to all my friends and for about 2 weeks we called him every day at all hours. This was my best revenge. I went through an awful divorce. My ex-wife cheated on me, told lies about me, and all throughout the divorce I took the high road and was there for my kids while she disappeared off the face of the earth. Her birthday was only a couple of weeks after the divorce was final. As the kids were young I was a good guy and purchased several presents from the kids to her. Among the gifts I bought a necklace with a big red A at the end. Her first name is Anne. I had the kids give that to her and she wore her scarlet letter all around town. Most people in our town knew what she had done and some even were aware of the necklace. Yup. I made my adulterous ex-wife wear the scarlet letter. My sister and I once applied for a summer job. I was in charge dropping the applications off to the company one day. I got there after a 40-minute commute. It was closed so I just drove back home. My sister was mad at me for not dropping them off regardless of the circumstances. She told me she was going to go there herself and drop her application and not mine. Since I didn't do it right the first time, my parents found out about this and made her drive a second trip to drop off my application as well since she was being petty and wouldn't take it the first time. I had a rival in high school because we got almost the same marks in everything. So I would sabotage him in harmless ways whenever I could. My most frequent one was to empty out the contents of his pencil case. Then turn the pencil case inside out, before refilling the pencil case with its contents, and carefully zipping it closed with the pull tab on the inside. He still doesn't know it was me doing it, because it would happen while he was in the bathroom and not at his desk. Being the youngest brother, I would only get hand-me-downs. My older brother rubbed it in my face that he got a brand new pair of PF flyers after Sandlot came out. Every day, I would stuff the toe of the shoes with tissue paper, adding a little more each day till he thought he outgrew them. Got slightly worn. PF flyers. After about a month, my dad had an old truck parked on the back of our property that some kept stealing small parts from. Cap, rotor, points, etc. We wired it to an electric fence power supply. One evening we heard a bunch of yelling and swearing and went back there and the guy left us some free tools. When we were kids sitting in church, there was a grumpy guy in the pew next to us who kept looking at his watch and sighing during the preacher's lengthy sermon. During the collection that followed, the man took out a $20 and held it up as the plate drew near. Then, he told the usher that he wanted $19 back because $1 was all the sermon was worth. Crossing at a busy downtown intersection, a very impatient driver waiting to make a turn honked at a lady pushing a stroller. She had the right of way. I slowed down, but the guy next to me straight up stopped in front of the car, then bent down to retie his shoelaces. I'm significantly older than my siblings. In his junior year, my younger brother had a girl who wouldn't leave him alone. After he rejected her, she started to show up once a week to leave creepy passion plays in chalk on our driveways. After that, my brother still didn't communicate with her, so she started to TP our house while she was drawing her stick figures on our driveway. So my brother came to me and asked what we could do to get back at her. He wanted to wait outside with their soft gums, pull the caps off of their tires at school, because I'm an adult and could get in quite a lot of trouble for harassing a minor. I did the next best thing. I called her school and got her barred from prom. Sharing a holiday home with some friends and their 10-year-old son started to be a pain. Not helping around the house and crying if he didn't get his way. His parents decided to just let him sit and watch YouTube on his iPad instead of disciplining him. So I logged into the internet router and would use admin privileges to suspend his device from accessing the internet. As soon as he got up to ask his dad for help, I would reactivate the device so it seemed as if nothing was wrong. I did this every day for 2 weeks. Had an ex-roommate whose girlfriend over time just started living at our house and refused to chip in on rent and utilities, even after multiple conversations about how it would be more beneficial to split things between us all. There were 3 of us living there before she started being a leech. Each month the utility bills went up, which really pissed me off because they were in my name. The house had 1 garage but a double wide driveway. My roommates and I had it planned out who parked where according to who left for work at such and such times. The GF started parking in my space, leaving me to park in the street and throwing off the parking arrangements. She also ruined a few pots and pans my mother had given to me by using metal utensils and then leaving them in the sink to get rusty. After a while she stopped socializing and sequestered herself in his room all the time, and we got mice because she was keeping food in the bedroom. The thing that really pushed me over the edge though was when I discovered she had been using my cosmetics when she had her own. Ended up getting pink eye because she just wouldn't stop using my makeup, even after I removed it all from the bathroom. My petty revenge was pissing in her shampoo. Not a little squirt either. I made sure to get nice and dehydrated and filled a solo cup, then poured it into her bulk-sized shampoo bottle and shook it up. This happened years ago and it still gets me riled up like nothing else. No regrets. I used to turn my friend's cigarettes upside down in the pack. It worked because he would just put the pack to his mouth and pull a cigarette out with his lips and then light it straight away. So he would end up lighting the filter on his cigarette, coughing wildly, and then tell me to go duck myself. Sometimes he would make the mistake multiple times in one night. I was dating this girl. Thought she was the one. So I gave her the keys to my apartment. I worked late for my job. I was just happy there was someone in my bed. When I got home at 2 in the morning. Came home one night, and she was awake. She confessed to using my apartment to cheat on me with 7 different people. So I packed her stuff up. She was still living with her mom anyways. So I lied to her and said I moved to Seattle. I moved to Hawaii instead. 3 months after being in Hawaii I get a phone call from her. I answer. And to my surprise she's called me from the Seattle airport. She flew out there to try and fix things between us. The dialogue goes as follows. Me. So you're in Seattle? Oh, yeah. Weren't you listening? I came here to fix us. Me. Oh, well that's bad. Oh, what's bad? Me. I'm in Hawaii, then hung up the phone. Phone rings I answer. Oh, you lied to me. Me. Huh. How does it feel? I hang up again. I don't know if that's petty. But to me was a good revenge.